Okay, Donna, are we good? Are we in?
Yes.
Okay. So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this afternoon's webinar of the Helen ISD SEAM Center. We are excited to be here today. My name is Irene Nigaglione, and I am president of Into Architecture, and I'm sitting here today as the chair of the Southern Region Foundation. The foundation had the opportunity this year to sponsor the TASA, TASB exhibit of school architecture. So we're very excited about this partnership. You will see some changes coming through. We're in the process of working a new criteria that will be published in the coming weeks for the new 2021-2022 awards. This year, we were excited to see that we had quite a few entries, and in the end, we ended up with 4 projects that rose to the top, and those projects were considered as part of the Cadell class. The Allen ISD SEAM Center is one of those projects. It's one of the projects that the jury found incredibly successful in how it used the site as part of the learning environment, and they were highly impressed with the partnerships that the school district was able to develop and create in the development of this project. With that, I am just for a little housekeeping. If you have questions, please place them on the chat. I will be trolling the chat and making sure that we get the questions that we can ask the panel. Please make sure to place them as you go through, and I will try to keep track of them and ask them at the right time or keep them all until the end. The team today will be doing both a presentation and a tour, so you'll be able to follow along and see a really good presentation on the whole campus. So again, feel free to ask questions. We will be here for about an hour. Ask questions as you see them fit, and we will take care of those. So I'm going to start with introductions today of the panel that will be speaking to you. The first panelist is Dr. Robin Bullock, Superintendent of Allen ISD. Dr. Bullock was named Superintendent of Schools for Allen ISD in January of 2020. Prior to becoming superintendent, she served as Allen ISD's Deputy Superintendent and Assistant Superintendent from 2013 to 2019. She previously served as the Deputy Superintendent for Midlothian ISD, as well as the Interim Superintendent. She began teaching 7th grade language arts in Midlothian in 2001. She also held positions as assistant middle school principal, elementary school principal, middle school principal, and director of personnel for Midlothian ISD. Thank you for being here, Dr. Bullock. Our second speaker is Daniel Pidcock, Assistant Superintendent of Operations for Allen ISD. Daniel works with the Superintendent of Schools and oversees several departments, including technology, transportation, facilities, safety, and security. Prior to his role as Assistant Superintendent of Operations, Daniel served as an assistant principal and principal of Roundtree Elementary School, and he began his career as a teacher, coach, and then principal within Richardson ISD. Welcome, Daniel. Our third speaker is Jennifer Wilhelm, Assistant Superintendent of Learner Services for Allen ISD. As the Assistant Superintendent for Learner Services, Jennifer supports the teaching and learning process in Allen ISD by providing curriculum instruction in core and special areas. Jennifer came to Allen ISD from her role as Director of Curriculum, Instruction, and Learner Support with McKinney ISD. She also has been Coordinator of Learner Support and Elementary Science since 2008. Her career began in Little Rock, Arkansas, where Jennifer was a gifted and talented science and technology teacher. Welcome, Jennifer. Our next speaker is Ken Hutchins, Chief Creative Officer for VLK Architects. As Chief Creative Officer, Ken Hutchins drives the brand, strategic output, and design philosophies at both the organizational and individual project level. For more than 33 years, Ken has completed hundreds of projects in the pre-K to 12, higher education, healthcare, commercial, and civic and cultural sectors. An expert solutions designer, Ken orchestrates the synthesis of processes and ideas to carry out mutually preferred scenarios for clients and their stakeholders. continually focus on learning and improving VLK services, can craft both conventional and novel approaches that best serve the client's needs and most effectively inform the basis of their designs. Welcome, Ken. Our next speaker is Delane Bullion, VLK Architects Principal of Educational Planning. A born educator, Delane knew she wanted to be a teacher since she entered the first grade. Delane has devoted her career to serving public education, first as a teacher, then as an assistant superintendent and chief academic officer before joining VLK. Her work with VLK and her scholarly research intersect in the study of learning environments that impact student engagement. Serving public education clients with an extraordinary depth of experience and firsthand knowledge, Delane leads in uniting the priorities of the district's curricula with design strategies. When architects and educators work together, Delane contends, the most dynamic and innovative educational environments are born. Welcome, Delane. And our last speaker is Larry LeBeau, STEAM Center Executive Director for Allen ISD. Larry serves as the Executive Director for the STEAM Center. He began his career as a science teacher and was a former campus principal at 2 elementary schools in Richardson ISD. He joined Allen ISD in 2009 as the K-12 science coordinator, where he oversaw science and helped build the curriculum in addition to providing professional learning for science teachers geared towards best practices in science, instructional strategies for the classroom, and utilizing innovative technologies. LeBeau also initiated STEM education at the district through programs like robotics clubs for elementary and middle school and coding workshops through a partnership with UTD. Welcome, Larry. With that, we look forward to this excellent presentation, and I'm going to pass it on to Ken Hutchison.
Well, thank you, Irene, and welcome to the Allen ISD STEAM Center. We're proud of this project for receiving the Caudell Award and being the only project in the competition last year that received all 6 stars of distinction. So our program for you today is we're going to have a panel discussion with our panelists, and then we're going to take you on a live tour and walkthrough of the building and some of the spaces. And then we'll come back to this area that's known in the building as the flight and field some of your questions through the chat. So now we'll begin some of our questions. So Daniel, pull this up. What necessitated the need for the Allen ISD STEAM Center? How did this project come to be early on?
Well, we have one high school in Allen, 26 square miles, with an enrollment at the high school, which is 10th grade through 12th grade, that was approaching about 5,500 students. And with continued growth at the high school, we started to look at ideas as to, do we build on? Do we renovate specific portions, or do we get creative and potentially examine the satellite concept? We came across about 16 acres plot of land that was donated, with an additional 10 acres that were available for purchase. And what was key to that was the location to it that really started to drive our thought process on how we could really grow what this could be. Started with the idea of science and technology classes to, I say, offload the high school. And it just continued to grow from STEM and then to STEAM through conversation and work with VLK as we fleshed out our ideas, and through logistics, looking at transportation schedule, we determined that it'd be possible to transport kids across to the other side of town, about 17 minutes to be exact, with our buses. And we're able to work out a high school schedule as we started to plan this, and determined we could offload or relieve some capacity need at our high school by designing classrooms at this facility and really maximizing the land and the environment, located very close to a creek, very natural area. So we had a blank canvas to paint from, not only from the land, but also from the classroom as well, to design innovative classrooms in the way in which we wanted to. And from there, it grew into how else could we expand that interest in the STEAM courses. And we added a K-8 wing on the other end of the building that would allow us to have field experiences for our kids across the district to come and explore the property that we have here, the classroom environment we've designed here, while also getting a chance to see those 10th through 12th grade kiddos take a look at STEAM courses.
All right, great, thank you. So Jennifer and Delane, when we began the design process and everything, you know, where'd we go? What did we do to gain the inspiration for this project that's unique in what Daniel just set up and how it was going to support the district's educational mission?
So I have to tell you, Jennifer, I'm really glad I got to sit by you today on the panel because it reminds me of the conversations that took place in the back of a Suburban in Seattle. So once we were awarded the project, we did a lot of studying to find out where do we even go to get inspiration for classrooms that are going to support STEAM, or like you said at the beginning of your the visioning of this, really starting with STEM before we even got to STEAM. So we landed in a highly concentrated population of STEM type environments in the Seattle area. And we also went to the Microsoft Garage. But Jennifer and I spent a lot of time between facilities helping to kind of paint the canvas that you're talking about, Daniel. So one of the things I remember us talking about were how do you even go about selecting the courses? Do we feed students here? Do we transport them back to their high school? So those are kind of my reflections of starting that curation process of where do we go to get inspired?
Yes, and to complement that, we really thought about what types of future-ready skills would our kids need and what type of learning environment supports that? What does the workforce look like and how can we really build career readiness for our students? But thinking about that, what does that look like and sound like at a high school level, since that really met our initial need that we were trying to address as a district? But thinking about where do you grow that curiosity and inspiration? So we also visited several local museums and elementary campuses in the area, including the Thoreau Museum, the Fort Worth Natural and History Museum, and a couple of others. And so really looking at how do those unique places inspire STEAM-related learning?
Okay, great. So Jennifer, following up on that, and the project started out as a STEM center and ended up as a STEAM center. So how do you determine those courses and making that migration in that process?
That's a great question. So we really looked at an opportunity to build on the land that we had. It has a great, unique natural environment, just like Daniel spoke to. And so we looked at the courses that really promote STEAM-related courses and skills. But then we also matched that to our enrollment projections for those courses. So we knew that this campus would house about 500 students per period. And we just heard the bell ring. They're here. And so we had to look at what courses could be offered here and match those. So it really was what courses are connected to the learning outcomes for our students and what courses really match our enrollment projections.
And we looked at the environment too, because like aquatic science was a given that needed to be here because of the creek that Daniel talked about. So,
But I'll just add on as well. That's something we still review. So that's one of the things we talked about early on is that each year we're still going to review the courses that are here. And is there any additional courses that we may want to move over here? And any courses over here, we may want to move back to the high school. So for next year, we have a new course coming in. So it is something that we continually review because we do want to maximize the spaces we have over here. We also want to maximize that integrated approach to learning that we do with all of our different contents working together between contents. And so it is important, and it was a conversation we still have. What's the best courses to be over here?
And one thing too that, and we may get to this in another question, but just to add on kind of to what Jennifer was saying, we were very intentional about not wanting to create something that looked like a second high school and to really not create an academy atmosphere and to be inclusive in the course selection process, that every kid could have the opportunity to come over here. And as we talk further, probably in our conversation here in just a little bit about that K-8 that was mentioned and making sure that our kids get exposed early to that STEM, STEAM concepts.
Yeah, I'll just add on to that because that's usually, I give a lot of tours of this facility, and Dr. Bullock's heard me say it before. That's usually the first thing I say is that we're for all kids of Allen. We are a K-12 facility. That's for all students. We don't have a application model. Not that anything's wrong with that model, but our model is we feel like every student should have the opportunity, if they choose to come through this facility. So our K-8 students, every one of our K-8 students comes through our facility, and our high school students, they just have to take one of the classes that we offer over here. That's all they have to do to come over. We want to be accessible for all of our students in Allen.
So Jennifer, on the tour, our viewers are going to see that K experience, but talk a little bit about that and the integration of elementary and middle and what you forecast and see as the benefit in the future as those students get exposure to high school programs that are here.
When you think about STEAM related careers, it really is around curiosity and wonder and problem solving, that engineering design process. And so to think about how do you build readiness for those skills? How do you build that as a part of the natural learning environment for our students? And so that begins with the youngest ages, and so our earliest learners have an opportunity to come to the campus and engage in STEAM related courses that align and are an extension of their state standards. So what they're learning in the classroom aligns to what they're doing over here in that unique STEAM related experience.
That's great. Robin, talk to us because it was essential early on, community partnerships, getting businesses, different folks involved, and now that the building's open, talk about those community partnerships.
Well, Allen has a very supportive community. As Daniel mentioned earlier, we are one high school and everything is centered around everybody being an Allen Eagle. And so that's very important. And so we knew we need to capitalize on that community support and involvement. And so through y'all's intentionally designed process of really bringing folks together and being able to facilitate collaborative conversations. We had staff members, administrators, community members, as you talked about, business partners. We had industry experts just based on the design of the facility that we were doing here, and bringing them all together and really talking through and developing, that conceptual idea of what it was that we wanted to see for our students. And we did that in groups and small teams, and then we presented to the larger group. And it was probably about 40 people or so by the time it was all said and done. But really having that dialogue and that conversation about what we wanted for the students in Allen ISD, and really being able to, through y'all's process, really be intentional about the indoor learning spaces that we have, the outdoor learning spaces that you're going to see, and how that plays such an integral part in that instructional delivery that Jennifer's talking about. And so we just appreciated participating and being a part of that process through that design, and really debating and creating and designing this facility that we're so very proud of.
Very good. Thank you. All right, everybody, hang on. We're going to turn Larry loose now with some questions. So we'll see what happens. So Larry, you live here every day as executive director. So what experiences are students receiving here, and how would you classify them as different than a normal school experience?
So I'll start by just saying we are unique here. And one of the things that, I know this is a very simplified way of saying it, but I like to tell people we're like the Swiss Army knife of facilities. A lot of places have CTE centers. A lot of places have outdoor learning centers. I've been to other places that have STEM centers. We have it all in one. And so we have lots of opportunities to really make sure that we enrich our students and provide them real world experiences. So on our K-8 side, you heard me talk about that every K-8 student comes through our facility. Well, when a K-8 student is over at our facility, they do several different things throughout their time here. They'll do an engineering design lesson, which we believe very strongly in the engineering design process. We actually got our engineering design process by taking the engineering design process that NASA uses and just tweaking it for Allen ISD. So they'll do an engineering design lesson. While they're here, they learn coding and robotics. So they'll do a coding robotics activity. They'll go down to our OmniGlobe, which I won't talk about because you'll see it a little later.
Jennifer would want to talk about it anyway.
Yeah, Jennifer would want to talk about it. That is so true. They'll go outside because we are also an outdoor learning center. And so they'll go out and use some of the environmental features we have. They'll go outside and experience the trails and do some activities on the trails. They'll go to our pond and do some learning at the pond. And that's just on the K-8 side. On our 10 through 12 side, we believe in that integrated approach to learning. We still utilize the engineering design process, but I challenge our staff and our teachers here to think outside of their content and work between content. So at any given time, you could have a project here going on between earth and space science, aquatic science, and engineering class, where all three of those classes and students are doing some integrated project together. Right now, we have a really cool project going on with over 120 students. When I talked to the teacher yesterday, it was 120, which are students from engineering, robotics, graphic design, AC/DC electronics, computer maintenance. So several of our courses where they're working on a project called Project May, which Project May stands for Modern Analytical Engine. They're basically rebuilding or not rebuilding, but they're building from scratch a modern computer, but a modern computer that's, if you think about Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and how when you had something spawn, you blow it up really big so that you can see it. That's basically what they're doing to the computer. That's going to have designed inside. You're going to see these blocks moving around so that no longer do you talk about computers and what happens on the inside and kids don't get to visualize it. They're not going to get to visualize it. So kids who are working on this project, I was working with one of our robotics kids the other day, and he was telling me, you know what's really cool about this project? Not only am I learning and working on the robotics pieces of the project that I'm already in class for, but I'm also learning about computer science. I didn't know about computer science, and now I'm working with other students from computer science and learning those pieces as well. And so experiences like that, and that's just one. That's one of many that I could tell you about. That's some of the experiences that our kids experience here. It's all real world. It's something that they can, the skills that they get from doing projects like that, or that they'll translate straight to, college, career, or military, whatever they end up going to.
So Larry, explain just briefly how the outdoor learning environment at this particular facility is really a daily part of instructional life. It's not just there for once a month or once a quarter or semester, but it's a daily integral part.
So every day we have students outside. Kate, students will be outside, environmental will be outside. Dr. Bullock earlier used that word intentional, and it's a word that we utilize here as well. We want to make sure that we're very intentional about all of our spaces and how we utilize them. So our students are, one of the great things about the outdoor environment here is it really represents the different ecosystems you see in Texas. So you can be on our trail system and you could be in our wildflower section and you're seeing the wildflower area. And then you go about a half mile down the trail and now you're in a wetlands, you're over by the pond. And so you really have so many educational opportunities with our outdoor environment here that we want to make sure that we provide those opportunities K through 12. Any given day you could go out there and it's mainly my staff members getting stuff for kids, but they'll be down in the creek getting some aquatic life for the creek and bringing it back up to be able to help kids be able to learn about what goes on in the aquatic environment here. And so we're very intentional on how we utilize our outdoor as well.
So last question, because then we need to get to the tour and show everybody this fantastic facility, but you've been the administrator of this campus since day one. I know one of your passions and focus that you thought was really critical to establish here was a culture. So talk about that culture, because I think that's one of the things that you see as you walk around the building from both instructors and students is what you've been creating since its opening.
So I'll admit up front, I'm a culture and climate guy. That's my leadership style. My belief is that if you develop a culture and climate based on respect, trust, support, your staff will come along and they won't want to let you down. And so we wanted to build that family atmosphere here. And so one of the things we did early on is I also wanted to model what we talk about what STEM is. We talk about STEM and STEAM, and it's about taking risks. It's about challenging yourself. It's about failing and then overcoming. And so I told my staff early on that, you know what, I want you to be a risk taker. If you're a risk taker and you try something and it doesn't work, I'm not going to slap you on the hand. I have one thing that I tell staff: if they take a risk on something that doesn't work, reflect on it and what would you do differently next time. And so it was really important to us that if I was going to ask my staff to do these interconnected projects where I want these different teachers stepping outside of their comfort zone with what they do here and interact with teachers of different contents, which is something that doesn't occur very often, I had to give them permission to take those risks and give them permission to fail sometimes. And so it was something that we felt very strongly about, that we wanted to create that STEAM family. In fact, when I send emails or any type of communication, we talk about it being a STEAM family because we're all here for one another. Is there tough love sometimes? Absolutely, just like any family. But we're here to support each other and to take risks and to challenge ourselves, just like we want to take risks and challenge our students. So I ask nothing more of the staff than what we ask our students as well.
Very good. All right, so that finished our discussion with our panels. So we are going to go and get in a position to walk you through a live tour of the building. And while we do that, we're going to show you a drone of the exterior side of the building with some call outs about the trails and different elements. So enjoy that for a couple of minutes and we will see you shortly. Okay. All right. So welcome back. So we're back live again in the building. We're at the entrance where the high school students actually come into the facility here. Buses unload them on the front. There's a secure vestibule and an office admin check-in area that has direct line supervision. So this is a two-story spline that actually runs through the building and connects all the spaces through the building, and also allows students to see just different activities and learning environments going on. So now we're going to kind of start going through here and walk into a couple of classrooms and see what's going on educationally today. There are students in the building, so you'll actually be able to get to see some things in action, and we'll go through some of the spaces.
As I mentioned, and I saw he just panned out to the outside, all of our outside is the natural environment. So everything that is outside is a native Texas plant, unless it's some weed that's been transported in, but it's all native. And it's supposed to be a natural environment.
There's a huddle room that looks into some of the lab spaces. These are scattered around the building on both the first and second floors, and just gives a breakout space for students to work, as well as teachers and their work planning, and students and teachers working together on projects.
It has a whiteboard wall on it so that students, while they're in there collaborating and planning together, they could do some collaborating work on the whiteboard wall. Or you also see there is a monitor in there that they can bring their computer and they can cast straight up to that computer so that they can use their computers as well while they're in there. But it's a great space for student collaboration. Classes that are here will send students out to work in that space. But because of the design of this building, It's very easy for us to monitor this building. So we also, during passing periods or while kids have off time here or their off periods, they can go and utilize that space as well. We don't have a reservation system for our huddle rooms. We want them to be used as much as possible. Of course, during pandemic, it's not being utilized quite as much just because of the necessity of kids being too close together.
I think one of the other things you'll notice if you go down this line of the hallway is we've got some intentional flex spaces for our kiddos with that high school.
Cafe over here. We do not have a full-blown cafeteria. We do not have a full-blown space for kids to be able to.
They're on that first floor, they're not gonna get reception.
We're ready to use it.
Well, just turn off Wi-Fi.
It depends on if your phone has Zoom settings for Wi-Fi or not.
She's not getting anything.
Ken says go to Delaney and Jennifer.
Everybody hang on a little bit. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties, but we'll be right back.
Okay, good.
So that's just one insight to all the amazing things that students experience here. Jennifer, you want to talk to us about the studios?
Absolutely. So as you open up, we have 6 studios that are designated as flexible learning spaces. So they can form individual classroom spaces, but we also have flexible walls. So what you see today is a lot of them are open. Out of those 6 spaces, we designated one. You'll notice the bright colors. This one serves primarily as our maker space for the K-8 students. We also have a larger maker space downstairs that is accessible for our high school students. But you'll see that we've got 3D printing and different types of features here. And then as we transition down the hallway, one of my favorite features of this, thinking about the purpose of this facility and the inclusion of our kindergarten through 8th grade students, is that inspiration, that exposure to STEAM learning. And so we were very purposeful in designing these spaces. You'll notice that this is our studio, but there's windows out there. And so as we walk closer to the windows, of course, you'll see the natural environment beyond. It's our pond and our pavilion. But more importantly, we get to see the kids in action, whether they're outside or whether they're indoors. And so our K-8 studios look down into the classroom. You'll notice we don't have a class in here at this point in time. But that way, as our youngest learners are here and engaging in STEAM-related activities, they can see the older students and the unique coursework that they're engaging in as well. So that's one of my favorite. You'll come and you'll see little faces.
There's little smudge marks right here. Around here.
And it's throughout this whole site. And so it's multiple, opportunities for them to be able to do that. So it is really cool.
So right now, because they're set up for what they're calling STEAM City, it's a camp. for fifth graders and it starts tomorrow. So we're walking over all the materials, but this environment set up for 2 classrooms to be able to work together. So they moved the wall to extend the learning environment to bring the orange and the green studio together. So very flexible, like Jennifer was talking about.
Another one of my favorite features of the building is we were very purposeful in exposing the actual systems within the building to make them learning tools. And so from this space, you can see one of those features. They're embedded all throughout the facility. But over here, you'll notice on the wall, there's a light and it's got blue, yellow, and green. And so that way it indicates whether the gas or the water, those types of building systems are in use in that classroom. And so you'll see those types of learning tools and exposure to the inside pipes and the operations of the building all throughout the building.
So let's keep going, looking at some additional studios. This opening was also inspired by one of the museums that we visited, so that the spilling out of the learning could actually occur even in the hallway, just adjoining these both ways.
So let's go out that way.
You might want to pause where they can
Okay,
see this way. So
Absolutely.
this is the other side of the building. And you'll notice that we have the parking lot out there. One of the features that we were purposeful with, it serves a purpose, but also functionally is our bioswales. So our parking lot has designated bioswales in it that serve as a learning tool for our students as well. So that's one of the activities that our K students do is they learn about bioswales and then design filtration systems in the engineering design process.
Jen, I don't know if you want to talk about anything with the, go ahead, no, with the trail system and the plaques that they see out there.
So you'll see that we have signage. We engage some of our teacher leaders in that design. And they serve as learning tools. And so they're structured all throughout the facility outside that provides information around those wildflower nature areas that you heard Larry talk about in different parts of our ecosystems. They also just have squares that we can be purposeful as different courses are in here learning about things. We can slide in QR codes and that way they can learn specific things related to their courses as well.
Well, and Delane also mentioned too, that when we walked into when we came into the K-8 section, how it's, separated from that 10-12 side or that high school side. And so if you can see, you see a student down there walking in, that's the 10 through 12 side. And then this over here, our high school side. And then this over here is our K-8 side. So we were very intentional about, keeping the kiddos safe and separate. And so we have lots of things in place in order to be able to accomplish that as well.
I love that you're standing in front of the plumbing systems that's
Yes.
exposed as well, because the studios are, like Jennifer mentioned, there's just all kinds of instructional tools all around students to provide that curiosity. So another studio down here at the end of this hallway, and then we'll be leaving the studio portion to go to the actual entrance for K-8. So tomorrow, when 5th graders get here, they'll actually be coming in these doors right here, and they'll meet here in this foyer. This is also was designed to be inspirational. We've got a fossil wall that students can touch and explore and try to figure out maybe what used to live there. So intentional materials as a part of the design process. And we've been talking a whole lot about the building systems. And this is also a dashboard where students can explore and learn more about what's actually happening in the building. Levels of oxygen, water usage, things like that. So teachers can design problems for students to have to solve, and they can actually use the building health
I come in
information.
just punch on it all the time.
So these are
I get in
solar
trouble.
panels that it provides the actual output that's generated from our solar
That's
panels here,
on.
on temperatures.
Yes. 64 today, little chilly for a swim. And it gives the depth. The pond was dug to 9 feet. I love that Larry talked about the different biomes that exist.
And the shape, all of our names were purposefully selected by a group of students. We brought them in and they were very purposeful in connecting the actual utilization of it.
And so if you'll just show them the Ellipse Theater, it was inspired by an IMAX theater so that students cannot miss the content that's being shown to them. And so while we're talking about it right now in a K-8 setting, because this is where students would be oriented to their experience all at one time, this is not an area that's only used by K-8. I've actually been invited here as a member and partner with VLK to talk about different things for the 10 through 12 side as well. And so when guest speakers come for the high school, we're invited to be here as well. And then the last thing I think that we would point out is that from this area, there's also, just like with every piece of the building, there's easily accessible outdoors. And so all of the opportunities that could be focused for K-12 are more at this end. And that's purposefully done as well. Jennifer keeps talking about intentionality. So they can also leave their studios and have access to the outdoors. Jennifer, is there anything else you want to add?
She hasn't highlighted us yet.
That's about it for the highlight of these spaces.
All right, we are back now on the high school section.
So that's K-8.
We're going to talk about Eagle Cafe, and we're going to go into a couple of classrooms.
So behind me is Eagle Cafe. We have a different concept than what you see in most schools. We do not have a full cafeteria here. We have a grab and go model. So students who are getting here from our main campus, because students go back and forth between our campus and the main campus. If they're about to go to class, they can stop then and go to the classroom. If they're leaving class and about to head back to the main campus, they can stop, grab something, head back to the main for students to be able to get some food, but get to where they need to be. One of the most popular items here is our extra large cookies, by the way. They're yummy. One of our classrooms. Our event hood. One of the unique things about our campus is we actually do not have a course over here that has a need for the vent hood. So a lot of people ask me, well, why do you have it? Well, you heard me earlier talk about that we wanted this building to be as flexible as possible and that we could have courses that go back and forth between here and the high school. So at some time, if we got a course that needed it, we needed to have it here so that we were prepared for it. You'll notice the natural light, all the glass looking out to our natural environment behind. One of the other really neat features that you'll see is if you look up towards the front of the room, you'll see the glass up there. That's actually some huddle rooms that are looking down into this space. Our classrooms on the other end of the building, our K-8 students actually look down into the high school classrooms. You'll also notice the monitors that are up on the walls for students to be able to see whatever the presentation is that's going on, which has been huge for our students as well.
Let's go to our room.
Thank you, Ms. Marlowe.
You're welcome. Thank you guys.
You'll notice as we're passing over to the left, you'll notice some spaces for students to be able to sit, work, charge their devices. Those spaces get utilized quite a bit too in between classes. You'll notice we have some folks in our huddle room. If you look over to the side there, you'll see we actually incubated chickens not too long ago, our eggs, and hatched chickens. And so you'll see our tools for that because we actually stream that process to all of our elementary campuses. Our chickens just went home to their farm. So they're no longer here, but the supplies are still here. Over to our left is our collaboration cove, another flexible space for students to be able to work. You'll see what's up on, you'll see whiteboard wall there. This was actually some of a group of students that we have here called our STEAM ambassadors that are actually working on being able to tell people about different STEM careers.
So you can see here, we've got the collaboration area, we've got a huddle room, and you've got line of sight into the lab. So students can be in multiple spaces, teachers can be in multiple spaces, but there's still control over the areas, but it allows breakout and different teaching and learning styles.
So this is our flight area again from the downstairs portion. You'll see the flight can be utilized by students in between classes. It can also be utilized by our classes here if they're working on some project or some group activity. They can bring the students out to work here at the flight. This is also a great community space. So as we have groups here, we've had robotics competitions here. We've had the Girl Scouts do their car derby here. We had the Allen PD brought their bomb robot and did a presentation here. So it's a great flex space. You'll notice over here is our multi-purpose rooms. And we don't have time to bring it up and down, but that's actually a garage door whiteboard wall that goes up and down to be able to divide the spaces.
So now we're going to go back to Delane and Jennifer, and they're going to demonstrate the globe there, and then we will come back for a quick Q&A session if there's been any questions delivered in the chat. So
Hi,
thank you very
so
much.
we have walked downstairs, so we are directly underneath the K8 area, and we are now in our exploratorium. What you'll notice behind us is our 60-inch Omni globe that has unique features of modeling for students. Of volcanoes located around the world. So this is just a great complement to the learning that they have in K8 as well as our high school courses. So we're going to travel back and we'll see you in a minute.
So Ken, can you hear me?
Yes, Irene, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So we've gotten quite a few questions. Thank you so much for that tour. That was, the facility is amazing. It was very helpful. We have quite a few questions. I'm going to start with some that I know I've answered a couple, and I know there's all that that can apply to you. Like, for example, the question was, who was a contractor, which I have shared is Cadence McShane. There was a question about what was the cost per square foot, and I shared the $319 a square foot that was shared in the submission for the awards, as well as the bid date of June 13th of 2017. One of the questions that has come up a few times is, what is the blue and green reflective material on the theater exterior? Ken? I don't know.
Ken, do you want to take that?
Sure. The exterior metal panel is a metal panel system that's aluminum with coating on it, and that's what you see. It's really cool because as the sun goes around the building, or as you walk around the building, there are different shades that come out, but it's a metal panel system.
Great, thank you. I know, Larry, you were talking about this, but it was coming in and out. There was a question about the cafeteria. Since you don't have a full cafeteria, where do the kids eat lunch? Can you elaborate on the lunch?
Sure. So our kids, each class period, come back and forth between the STEAM Center and the high school. So some of our students actually eat over at the high school in their cafeteria, but the students who actually eat using our Eagle Cafe, some of them will eat here at the flight, or they'll eat outside. We didn't see our outdoor Grove area, which also has, it's like our outdoor learning stairs, so they'll eat out there as well. So they really eat in just some of this outdoor or the inside or outdoor spaces that we have available. We don't necessarily say you have to go to this one room and they eat. They also, some of them eat in the classroom. Depending on how fast they're trying to get to class, our teachers do let them bring food in and they can eat in the classroom as well. So just like our building being flexible, lunch is flexible here too.
Okay, the next couple of questions I will pose to Delane and Jennifer. There was a question when you guys were sharing the K-8 area and that collaboration space. The question was, is there a partition to close off the classroom from the collaborating corridors? And an associated question, are there acoustical challenges with the open spaces if multiple classes or activities are occurring simultaneously?
So essentially what you saw was it was fully open, but there is a movable wall that has rideable surfaces between each of our studios. So we have the flexibility to open as many spaces as we want or to close that off, depending on the learning environment and the learning outcomes.
And Larry, do you want to talk? I know you know about the experiences the kids are having in there and if there are challenges. Yeah.
So the acoustics are great in there. Most of the time we have it open. And you can have students in one studio, have the wall open to the next studio, and it's not a problem. It's not an issue. The acoustics are great. The kids can still hear the instructions. Of course, STEM and STEAM is a little messy and can be loud at times, but it really doesn't impact the students' ability to be able to hear what's going on, even if they're in that room next door and there's no wall there. So I would say that there is no issue with the acoustics, with it being open like that.
Well,
We pretty much leave it open.
And I would add to that, I think sometimes the most frequent question I get is, how are students going to not be distracted? And I think this is a perfect example of an open environment where you just teach procedures. And then once the novelty runs off, that's about 2 weeks, then this is just normal. And so I think we've seen the very same thing in the K-8 studios.
Yeah,
Openness is okay.
We have some of our high school classes, like statistics and engineering and robotics, that also have walls in between their rooms, and they open their walls as well. So it's just, again, part of that culture that we have here. And it's not distracting to the students.
Okay. The next question I have, I'm going to pose to Daniel. So Daniel, you talked about getting 16 acres donated and 10 that you purchased. Obviously, this property came with challenges. How did you always know this was going to be the STEAM Center, or when was that the decision, and how did you embrace the challenges that came with the site?
That must have definitely been somebody who's built the building who asked that question. Yeah, when we first saw the property, I think it's really all mindset. Yes, it does slope down to the creek. We are at the bottom of a hill. We did have to bring site utilities here. And we had to go out and purchase the additional 10 acres to support parking, and then also drainage, and also our geothermal wells to support the building. What I'll say is, like I said earlier, it was really mindset, getting the right architect and engineer on board. And once it was determined this was the location, we sat down and really designed the building into the slope of the topography. It's a 2-story building, but you enter the K-12, the 10 through 12 side on 1 story, and you enter the K through 8 side of the building on another. So it was getting creative, getting innovative, kind of the theme of this building, and really embracing this land so we could take care of our kiddos.
I have to give a shout out to Coy Talley with Talley and Associates. He was the landscape architect that also worked with us and really understood how the environment that was here could really be maintained to support the learning environment. And so I think he was critical in the process as well.
And I'm going to pose a follow-up question then to Ken. The building is located, for those that don't know, it's off of 121 here in Dallas, which is a very busy freeway, but you can't see the building from the freeway. Was that intentional? And are you pleased with the fact that it just kind of sits into the landscape?
We were very intentional in the design of the building because, you go right by it during construction until the roof joist and the roof started going on. You didn't even know where the building was. Now, wintertime, deciduous trees, you see more of the building. But our intent was that the building was nestled into the site. That was very secluded. It's a very quiet learning environment on the outside. If you're out on the side, if you're on one of the trails, if you're at the pond, it's very quiet. It's like being in your neighborhood. You don't know you're next to a major Texas highway. And so that was all intentional, how we situated the site, how we made the massing curve and flow into the site. So that was one of our goals. This wasn't about plopping a building down on top of a site. It was integrating a building into the site and trying to not disturb natural material. We left as many trees, swales, things that we could, so that when we were done, the building really blended into the site like it's been here for a long time.
Thank you. And I have one last question. One of the things that impressed the jury was the fact that you have partnerships created so that you can extend and provide even more diverse learning opportunities. We know you have Collin College, new tech campus across the street. Other than them, what other partners do you have as part of this process?
I'll take that one. So that's really important to us. So a partnership, and I'll just kind of give you a definition of what a partnership is to me. It's pretty simple. A partnership is anything that's going to enhance our students' educational experience. Now that could be a partnership where we have some professionals come in and work with our students. That could be where we get access to students being able to go to their business to be able to learn and see what they're doing. And so all of those type experiences are crucial for our kids. So partnerships are huge. So just over the past 2 days, I've had 3 different companies I was talking with. I was talking with the Pro Museum. Pro Museum is coming in 2 weeks because they're using our STEAM ambassadors who are going to provide them some feedback on something they're actually working on. And they're the only students in the Metroplex that they've asked to give that feedback. It is because they value their feedback so much. I was working with EarthX just the other day, another partner of ours, on something that we're thinking about doing in the fall. I was working with currently working with Boeing. Boeing's a great partner of ours. Boeing's working with us and another district in the area on an opportunity for our kids coming up in a few weeks. And that's just a few. So there's a long list of partners that we work with that really enhance what our students do, because that's crucial. I mean, our robotics team has engineers that come in every day. You heard me talk about Project May earlier. With that project, that's actually, we open source that project. So we actually have some folks from UTD, and we have some other engineers that are working with our students on that project. So when we talk about, we want real world experiences, and we want students to be prepared for what's really out there once they get to college, career, whatever it might be. We have to give them access to those people. And so I know I could sit here and list off about 15 more that we have, but it's been crucial for us to have those partners so that they really enhance our students' experience.
Well, on behalf of the Southern Region Foundation and everybody, I just want to thank you for the wonderful tour and insight into your building, which is fabulous. We know why the building earned the 6 stars of distinction and earned the Cadell Class Award. I also wanted to put a pitch for the A4LE North Texas chapter. We'll be doing another tour of this facility on May 26th. If you want to learn more, please join that group. In the meantime, thank you to Allen ISD and thank you to VLK for your time today. Thank you for sharing this wonderful facility with us. And thanks everybody for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.